On this video, we talk about anxious mind and how it closes in on us, making it impossible to see the world, others, and even ourselves. Hello, I'm Alan Robarge, an attachment-focused psychotherapist and a relationship educator, and I like to talk about how to heal attachment injuries and improve our relationships. And on this video, we're going to talk about how we can work with our mind, which might sound a bit esoteric or removed or too objective as opposed to personal. I mean, just hear that phrase, work with your mind. Many of us feel that we are chasing our mind is out of control, we cannot influence or change our mind. And we do know from neuroscience and certain research that says, well, in fact, we're pretty much focusing on just a very few things in our world, and we don't have awareness that extends beyond the immediate. And then we know there's this other information, this other research that says we're only using a small fraction of our mind. So work with our mind, that phrase, that idea, it comes from the ability to step back, to have an observer self, and to all of a sudden think about thinking, to all of a sudden think about, well, what is my relationship with my thoughts? What is my relationship with my mind? And if I can step back and start noticing the quality of thoughts, the type of thoughts, the pattern of thoughts, the intensity of thoughts, the frequency of certain thoughts, the pain that certain thoughts create, how we often are rather fragile in our mind, that we don't have a grounded place, we don't have a center, and we feel very much like we're just blown in the wind. Something happens and a wind blows through our mind and we're just blown over. And for many of us, then anxiety activates this feeling of groundlessness, of I don't have sure footing. I don't know how to turn left. I don't know if it's safe to turn right. Should I go up? Should I go down? And it's this spinning quality of confusion. We'll just label that whole thing confusion. So work with your mind is almost aspirational. This idea of saying, well, this is the nature of mind. That wind is blowing us over and blowing through our thoughts. Thoughts are temporary. Thoughts can be rather confusing. It links to emotional activation in our nervous system, in our body, meaning the anxiety, meaning the worry, meaning the fear, meaning the anger, lots of aggression. And that certain thoughts come up and just instantly there's this activation, this trigger. I'm angry now. I'm really angry. And so we might notice a very aggressive mind. A very simple way to observe that is drive on the freeway, drive in a busy area, and due to the inability to control other people, and it's a fearful situation when you're driving fast and you notice someone doesn't appear to be as safe as you are, or just some potential accident happens, and our response, our mind gets agitated. Now, perhaps you are familiar with this. An idea from meditation is to sit at the edge of a pond and you're noticing the choppiness of the water, and that's a metaphor for your mind, and saying, well, sometimes the wind is going to blow in and there's all these waves and it's just not conducive. Don't take a sailboat out. Don't get in a rowboat when that pond is churned up. And then there's other times, there's other days where the weather seems to be calmer and there's not a lot of change and transition between the days or the weather. And then the lake smooths out And your thoughts, if this lake is the metaphor for your mind, your thoughts are not as quick, as sharp, as going all over the place, as crashing on the shore. And all of a sudden, on that day, you can get in the sailboat and move through the lake, move through your mind. And sometimes that water is so calm and it's so clear that you get a chance to start seeing what it is reflecting from above, and you also get to see through the depths below. And this is also, and the idea of depth psychology, the word depth was borrowed or linked to this idea, the unconscious, the collective unconscious, the ability to go into the depths. And a comparison to that is the oceans. So work with your mind is starting to pay attention to your mind as this lake and noticing how choppy the waters are. Notice how often, how frequently the weather changes. Notice whether or not you can see anything being reflected on the surface of the lake, on the surface of your mind. What are your thoughts reflecting back to you? What do your thoughts tell you about the world around you? What do your thoughts reflect back to you about yourself, about who you are? And then we also have the ability to go down, to look down, to see when that lake has a bit of clarity to it. The opposite of clarity is confusion. The opposite of clarity is chaos. The opposite of clarity is non-wisdom. We might even say the opposite of clarity is loss of sanity. And I'm very conscientious in this moment, or very particular about, I'm not saying insanity, I'm just saying loss of sanity. There's a difference in that. And we might say, sure, maybe a part of my mind, when I enter that part of my mind, I notice, well, that's my insane part, maybe. But we live in a culture that's so outrageously judgmental and absolutists, and wanting to compartmentalize and draw some very broad sweeping absolute conclusion that just says you're this or you're that. So this approach, the work with your mind approach, having an observer self, is a way to notice these changes, that we move in and out of clarity and confusion. We move in and out of aggression and calm. We're moving back and forth. It's this dance. It's this rhythm. And think again of the waves on the lake. Is that too appears to be like a dance. There's a rhythm to the wave, and then that rhythm changes, and there's a bit more calm, and you're able to bring some clarity. And just when you think that you see something, just when you think you have some clarity, just when you're noticing the connection between what's above and what's below, and you're in the middle holding it all together, and there seems to be an exhale into a knowing. And sometimes we even might say, like, it's a deeper knowing. It's my intuition. It's my innate wisdom. It's my brilliant sanity. And then it goes away again. And life happens. And emergency. And fear. And money concerns. And relationships fall apart. And you're let down, and there's a disappointment, and you didn't get that job that you wanted, and then you get a phone call that someone is ill, someone has died, you're worried about oh my gosh, do you feel it? Notice what's happening is we're going from spacious mind, a mind that has possibility, a mind that has openness, and we're coming into constricted mind. We have constricted mind. I love this visual because you literally, I think it's incredibly helpful. Go for a walk outside and just see the world like this. Imagine you're talking to, it's a rather important conversation. It's with a partner, a friend, someone who's important to you, a family member, maybe a boss, because there's a real importance in getting a paycheck in your career. But something's at stake, and there's a negotiation happening. Maybe negotiating interpersonal exchange, maybe negotiating, hey, I'd like us to be a little more emotionally open with each other. I'd like us to be able to make more time for each other. I'd like us to be able to drop our guard and not be so holding back with our feelings. Or if it's, again, at a work situation, it's being able to say, I need to talk about my role in the organization and my future here. So regardless of the type of conversation, imagine if you're having that conversation with this amount of view. Imagine, you're looking at your partner, you're looking at someone that you're dating, you're looking at a boss, and all you can see is what's in that small viewfinder. And we're going to call that your mind. In that moment, you have constricted mind. I don't know about you, but I feel a sadness in that this happens to us. I mean, because depending on the time of day, where we're at in our life, and we're going through life in a very constricted, very tight, not very spacious, not very open, not very expansive. But we have a very limited amount of view. We might say limited bandwidth, limited consciousness, limited understanding. Now, of course, in this moment, you can't see what I'm seeing, but, pause the video and do this. You're really going to see real quickly. I mean, it's like I have such a small... When I do this, I have such a small amount of space. I mean, I cannot see anything over here and over here. And let's apply that to this as the metaphor or the comparison for how our mind gets very, very small. We have small mind. We have small thoughts. We have small view. And I do feel a sadness about this because it's immediately entering life with a handicap. It's entering the day. It's entering negotiation. It's entering relationship. Saying, I want to be with you. I want to relate to you. I want to practice getting to know you. But, oh, by the way, this is about how much I have available to understand the situation, to offer to you, and to be able to engage this relationship, to engage understanding each other, to engage communication. So there's all this other stuff. We have the small myopic view, and then there's all this other space out here: spaciousness, openness, possibility, creativity, that we're cut off from. The sadness is we're cut off from that. And unless you are, have an amazing mind, which, the truth is, I think all of our minds are amazing, but it's not so much whether or not you have an amazing mind, it's if you have access to expansive mind. The lake needs to calm down. If you're living in agitation, if you're living in fear, if you're living in busyness, if you're living in distraction, if you're living in a hamster wheel, if you're living chasing success, if you're living chasing being seen, known, heard, like Instagram, notice me, I'm in, people who are constantly making videos, there's this deep crying, this deep scream that we're hearing collectively in all social media that everyone is really trying to entertain and perform, in a 3-minute little video or 2-minute video clip or 1-minute video clip, and just tap dance. I'll tap dance for you. Can you see me now? Can you see me now? And then the moment that that video is over, we got to make the next video and the next video. And we're just constantly trying to keep the plate spinning in life, to keep dancing, to keep making TikTok videos. And of course, you know, if you don't make TikTok videos or you're not an influencer or doing content marketing, of course, it's not literally about that. I'm using that as a metaphor. Pick your thing, pick your distraction, pick your obsession, pick your addiction. Be it a process addiction, be it obviously a substance addiction is an easy example to use. But addictions are a way also to react to, it's really painful to live life with such small, constricted, hear that word constricted, I'm constricted, confined, a confined view. It feels very claustrophobic. There's not a lot of, it's very tight. People are very rigid here. There's rules. We got to do this. Hey, wait a minute. You're not following the rules. We don't have a lot of room to move here. It's not a place of experiment. Rigid, myopic, constricted mind is not a place for experimenting. It's not a place of creativity. It's not a place of discovery. It's for some of us, and wow, this is going to be hard to say and hard to hear because of how painful it is. For some of us, this is our prison. This is where we live. Now, there's a link here. My work is around trauma and very specifically attachment injuries and attachment wounds that over time show up developmentally as emotional relational trauma, what we call as attachment trauma, and that intimacy and vulnerability were denied us or neglected or so incredibly confusing that we couldn't rely on some consistent amount of intimacy, vulnerability, connection, attachment, a reliable emotional bond that allowed us to start looking outside of your constricted, small, myopic view. Now, the reason why this begins to show up as trauma symptoms, and we talk about attachment injuries, is because when you're being denied connection, when you're being denied emotional warmth, when you're being denied others making bids to invite you in, and you're just standing there like, I wonder if I'm gonna, hello, I'm here. I wonder if I'm going to be seen. Do you want to know me? And attachment injuries are in the realm of, no, I'm not going to make an effort to know you. I don't really want to know you. And then the messaging, the core messaging that comes out of that, not for everybody, but for some of us, is like, oh, I guess you're not interested in my interest, and I guess I don't matter, and I guess I don't have any, I cannot influence. Hello, over here, hello, I can't influence getting the connection that I need, want, deserve. That is our right as a human being. It's coded into our DNA and our body, our mind, our nervous system is mapped, is designed to connect and to feel closeness, to build relationship. Now, when this doesn't happen, let's imagine age 1. This is great openness, and there's this consistent kind of chronic not really being engaged. And the more we are not engaged, we lose connection with what's around us, because we're starting to hone in on, hey, wait a minute, I cannot allow myself to explore life. I cannot allow myself to have spacious mind. I cannot allow myself to let in the influence of change because I'm so distracted by this thing over here. This is really important, that until I resolve, and make sense of not getting connection, needing connection, and figuring out how to make connection happen, then I'm not going to pay attention to anything over here. It's just not safe, too distracting, too just not safe. So we come back to here, where our mind is collapsing on itself. And so this, then we can also say, in this space here, is the containment of trauma mind. It's very concentrated. So for some of us, constricted mind includes, let's call it a lens. So we have constricted mind, we have limited view, and now we're putting a lens over it, a filter, and we're going to put the trauma filter over it. Trauma is an incredibly overused word these days. It's also an objectified, ridiculous word that gets used in contexts that are, so take that with a grain of salt. And I understand if I even use that word, it can be alienating and confusing just because it's so overly used, and everyone pretends that we all know what we're talking about, but we don't, because the nature of your trauma is personal and subjective, and it's your own inner world experience. And I have my trauma, and my definition, my relationship, my interpretation, my understanding of my trauma is incredibly unique to me. There's potentially some overlap, and we use education, we create a common language in order to speak to that overlap. But really, it's just you and your mind. It's just you and your own myopic, constricted view. It is just you and your history creating particular filters and particular lenses. So now do you see, now, once I add the filters and the lenses, now I really only just have about, I have maybe 1.5 inches of space that I can see out of. Now, again, I'm going to rewind a little bit to bring in the example, and I think I hope you're getting it. I think you're getting it. I just feel like we're on the same page, which how the heck do I know? But let's go back to you're in a relationship. You need to have a conversation about, could be the kids, could be money, could be spending time together, could be sharing feelings. These are all really common things that everybody talks about, and they're also really common things that couples fight about. So you're getting, you know that you need to negotiate and open up the conversation. And hear that word, open up. If you don't know how to open up your mind, how are you going to be able to open up a conversation? But we come into this conversation with intention, and perhaps everybody doesn't have good intention, but in this moment, let's just say we enter with good intention. We're gonna make an effort. I'm slowing down in the delivery of explaining this in this moment because I feel the weight and the heaviness, and it's very sad. It's alarming. And I'll use myself as an example. I'm attempting to connect with people I care about, and I'm operating from a rather small bandwidth of space. There's a phrase that I I learned in my trauma education. I've known of it for years, and I think it's very helpful. And the phrase is that trauma disconnects us from resource. I'm going to expand on that. Trauma can disconnect us from accessing skills, accessing states of mind, accessing other types of feeling, accessing perspective, accessing problem solving abilities, accessing compassion and empathy for other people, accessing compassion and empathy for myself. So all of those things, the very specific qualities, we just put under the umbrella of resources. As a human being, as a thinker, as a feeler, as someone who moves through time and space, and you're constantly interacting with someone else. There's you, there's me, we come together, the collective joining is the we become a we, and then we move away, we separate, and then we're back to like my differentiated self and your differentiated self, and the afternoon unfolds, the day unfolds, and then we come back together. And there's this joining again. And so we're constantly moving in and out of these states of connection. And that's a really good example, metaphor, because we're simultaneously in our mind moving in and out of these states of resource and awareness. And imagine you have this really important conversation with a partner, a romantic interest, someone you're dating, and you really need to say, I care about you. And you're trying to negotiate your relationship. And you realize that you have a limited bandwidth, limited awareness, limited focus, you're distracted. But yet you're trying to have a very important conversation to negotiate a relationship which requires all of the things that are out here. I all of a sudden felt like I was doing like jazz hand dancing, That's not what I meant. I'm not trying to make this, I should, if I when I edit the video, I should like make it do sparkles, Okay. Distraction. I just realized I can see myself on the video, and sometimes I look ridiculous. So I was just needing to laugh about that. I keep using the word sadness. Maybe it's not sad to you, but I think it's sad that we want a life of connection. We want a life of fullness. We want a life of opportunity. We want a life of expansiveness. We want a life of possibility and creativity. And that when we are presented with a challenge, that we have options. And if we have a bit more expansive mind, we're able to use what's out here. We're able to see this piece of the puzzle with this piece of the puzzle. And we begin to start noticing how they can relate. And before, if we only have myopic mind, we cannot even identify the different pieces, let alone figure out relationally how they're going to go together. We don't have that skill, that bandwidth, that ability to focus. You can't go out on the lake if there is a storm. You can, but what's going to happen? We know what's going to happen. The boat's going to crash in the rocks. The boat's going to tip over. The boat's going to take on a lot of water. And you're going to be a complete, absolute mess while you're fearing for your life in this storm in the middle of the lake. When that happens, that's not the time to have a conversation about our relationship. That's not the time to go to a boss and say, hey, let's explore my salary, my compensation. Let's explore my future here. Let's just do some review on how we're all working together as a team. That type of conversation is frightening, is limited. It really doesn't have a lot of possibility if we're walking into our boss's office in the middle of a storm on a lake in a boat that's about ready to crash on the rocks. And most of us, what we do is we override the awareness of very discursive, busy, distracted, violent, aggressive mind, speedy mind, And we try to just hold it in and put on the fake face. Hi. Hi. How are you? Oh, I'm doing great. Yes, I just killed that, I just killed the account. I killed that sale, made a big sale, or, I finished that project, and, things are going great. I'm great. Can't you tell? Yeah, I'm a winner. I'm on top of it. I'm the boss. I got this. That's our ridiculous culture. It's a counter response to everything I'm talking about. Is say, let's just cover it all up. What if we just constantly enter trance and autopilot? What if we numb our feelings and awareness of what's going on through addiction? Let's bring in more addiction, more workaholism, busy, more drinking, more alcohol, more going out. Let's just fill up our weekends with constant activity so that we never have to slow down and be with ourselves. We never have to slow down and look in the mirror. We never have to slow down and see the other person sitting right in front of us who's really saying, hello, I'm here. I'd love to connect with you. I welcome you creating an invitation for me to connect with you. I welcome you wanting to connect with me. That very tender exchange is not going to happen if we're living in agitated, constricted, myopic, contained, claustrophobic, rigid, trauma-filtered, obscured view. It's like going to a job, and let's use a job that needs a lot of tools. You're a contractor, you build houses, you do all of it. You do the whole thing. You might hire a plumber and you might hire an electrician, but you're trained in all of it. So you need some help here and there, but you understand what's going on, and you're doing a lot of the work yourself. And let's imagine you go to your truck to get your tools, and you realize that when you usually have, 5 sections of tools or 5 toolboxes, you're a contractor, you got a lot of tools. But you go to your truck and you find not only do you only have 1 box of tools there, that box is not even full. And you have some oddball tools that are used for such specialization, such very unique projects that you can't use that tool. It has very limited application. That is what we are talking about. We're going through life because of this constricted, myopic view. Because we're not slowing down to say, I have got to learn how to be in relationship with this view. I have got to start working with my mind and notice how it expands and it contracts, and it expands and it contracts. And sometimes when it expands, I'm like, oh shit, this is really scary. Ah! Or when it expands, we notice someone's there waiting to love us. Someone is loving us. And then we get scared because, oh, wow, that's vulnerable. Wow, that's really putting me on the spot. That's really intense. Or it expands and opens up and we see reflected back to us as, I'm not living. This isn't living. I'm chasing life. I'm such a robot. I am so shut down. I have no passion. I have no purpose. I have no friends. I have no connection. I have no community. Wow. I'm living life in such a profoundly small space that I am missing out. Not only am I missing out, I don't have any tools. I have very few tools. I have access to very few tools to be able to start living with a greater sense of expansiveness. Now, be careful, beware. Everything I'm talking about. This is the point. Let's bring in. We're going to bring in motivational speakers. We're going to bring in. We're going to bring in the big, the big stage presentations. The light. We're at this really great theater. We have these nice red velvet seats. We were out in the lobby, and we had a water, and we had some green tea. And it's a healing conference, and we're all healing. We're healing and doing the work, and this is the part where we say, don't you want expansive mind? Don't you want more? Don't you want to get the relationship that you say that you want? Don't you want to be driven by purpose? Don't you want to belong? Don't you want to finally feel the we, you, me coming together, a sense of connection? Don't you want this chronic fear and this poking agitation of aggression and judging yourself? You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not lovable. Who loves you? But we're at this health conference where we've paid $250 for this seat, and we're going to hear an inspirational speaker. And they're going to set up all of this hype and anticipation of what's out here. We bring in the choir, and the lighting changes, and maybe even then there's some music, and yes, this is what I want. Yes, that's just entertainment. That's approaching this. One, from a marketing perspective, they're just trying to sell. They're trying to sell this idea of possibility, and they're presenting it as if it's just about you making a choice. If you just say, yes, that's what I want. Yes, of course I want that. And then we, in a myopic, there's another word that I haven't used here all day. I use it often. I love this word. This is mostly mindless. This is mindless living without a mind, as opposed to mindful. But because of healing culture, specifically around social media, is that healing is being packaged and presented as a commodity, and it is objectified, and it's something that there's these experts. That just gets me. Anybody who calls themselves an expert in anything, specifically around working with your mind and relationships and being able to understand heart, know heart, drop into heart, work with broken heart, live a life of grief, walk through the river of sadness, and then say, I'm an expert. And then another gigantic tsunami wave of suffering wipes you out. Oh no, I'm an expert at suffering. I'm an expert at the mind. I'm an expert in relationships. I'm an expert in doing the work. Ridiculous, outrageously ridiculous. Why am I presenting this here? Because many of us leave the conversation of where we're at in this conversation with a false sense of hype and a false sense of convincing oneself that this is simply an idea. It is not an idea. It is a practice. It is a process. It exists in context. It's the result of engagement. I am not just sharing ideas. As I talk about this, I'm having an experience internally, and I'm mapping my experience, and I'm trying to bring words and language and experience and understanding to that process. But when this video is over, it doesn't matter I have a video. It doesn't matter what I've said. It's that I've just spent, I'm at 42 minutes. I just spent 42 minutes in relationship with my closed off, constricted, myopic view of a mind, of a life. And I'm coming back to, I cannot force, change, or make myopic, constricted mind open up just because I said so, just because I did the work, just because I am so overwhelmed with a sense of excitement and hype that I'm going to just change today. Because through that's eagerness, and that's earnest eagerness, and it's a false sense of conviction, and it's that you go, get it done, make it happen, just do it. The mind doesn't work like that. You can't force open consciousness. You can't force open expansiveness. You can't force open entering a space that does have spaciousness, that does have a bit of an exhale, that does have view. Imagine being in a relationship with someone who's offering view. Imagine when you see them from a point of view of spacious awareness. Or are you two people in relationship only looking at each other like this, and then resenting and getting angry at each other about, why don't you see me? Oh yeah, well, why don't you see me? There is a very lonely, isolating place to this awareness, because this is personal. I cannot invite you into this place. I can talk about it. We can share it. We can say that we have similar experiences. But it's really just me by myself, alone in my body, in my mind, in my space, in my world, in my life. It's just me and my life looking back at each other. For me, I like the word honey, which I know sounds weird, but if I call myself honey, there's something about it that, again, I don't know why, but it just comes, it immediately I can access a very tender, honest place. It's me in my life looking at myself, and it's just, honey, how are you doing? No, really. This life, oh, honey, this is hard. Life can feel so isolating in this space. It's why many people don't meditate. It's why many of us don't work with our mind, that we don't have a contemplative practice. Because it requires sitting down, entering that frightening isolation, entering the aloneness with oneself in one's life, and starting to explore and see and connect with and feel everything that I'm talking about. And for many of us, if you only have this kind of view as a reference point, everything else out here is too much. Everything out here is too scary. Everything out here is the enemy. And so we say, no, I'm just going to shut down to all of this. I'm actually going to become defended and guarded against all of that. I'm actually going to double down and dig my heels in the sand, and I'm just going to say, nope, this is reality. This is what we got to work with. This is reality. And I'm assuming in this moment you can feel, you can apply what I'm saying to rigid thinkers collectively, and we're all rigid thinkers. One moment I'm a rigid thinker, one moment I'm a bit more of an open thinker, and then 10 minutes later I'm a rigid thinker again. It comes and goes, and it comes and goes, and that's the nature of mind. You're noticing the waves on the lake. They get churned up and choppy, and then they calm down for 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden something happens, and you're right back to rigid mind. When we are fearful, when we are challenged by very life-threatening, doesn't literally need to be life-threatening, but like these really, let's say all of a sudden you have some banking issue and your money stress, all of a sudden your mind just goes instantly, you close in on yourself. That's not something you control. You can't go to a weekend workshop, or pay $2,000 for some course to, go to a spa and feel really good about, expanding your mind and then go, oh, see, I'm very open-minded. Because 10 minutes later in the parking lot, when another person that you met at the retreat runs into your car, instantly it's like, beep. And then all of a sudden your tranquility and your great commitment to see the world with expansiveness, all of a sudden we don't have that. We've disconnected. It comes and goes and comes and goes and comes and goes. When we are presented with very painful, hard life challenges and we are overcome, we are possessed with fear, we resort to these survival mechanisms and these very, very like a caged animal response to survival. And it's from this place that we're trying to make choices for our life. Do you want to be in relationship with yourself when you're like this, or a bit more like this? Do you want to be in relationship with someone else who is stuck looping, who doesn't even know that there's something else out here? And empathy to us who might live the majority of our life here, empathy to others, maybe someone in your family, someone you're in relationship, someone that you love. Compassion and gentleness counters the aggression, the demands. There's layers on top of layers, because some of us, we might not be able to articulate this, but we know this, and you live like this for 2 years, for 5 years, for 10 years, for 17 years, it's 35 years, it's 47 years, and you get exhausted. You have some kind of sense. You just sort of have a sense of, I am so confined here. I am sick and tired of feeling so shut in. The rigidity, the small view, lack of access of possibility. And yet there is also this kind of wisdom, intuition that says, I think there has to be something more. And then we wake up in the morning and nothing has changed. An entry point, maybe we'd say a gateway, to just begin is some kind of patience, some kind of neutral awareness, some kind of tolerance, an observer self, an observer that says, I'm just going to pay attention to this, and then it's going to move 2 inches. And then it's going to shut down again. I haven't even in this whole video, I haven't even made tight, clenched fist. Sometimes we're so frightened. Sometimes we feel that we're on a hamster wheel, treadmill of a life, and we're spinning plates, and so many people need something from us. We don't even exist. We lose ourselves. We betray ourselves. We don't even know who we are. And we have shut down on ourselves. I can't see anything now. I have zero view. Yes, it's possible to go through life with moments of zero view. Can we make the argument and say you go through your whole life with zero view? I don't know. I think maybe that might be a philosophical conversation, or because we've already identified that this is so incredibly personal and subjective and private. And there's layers and nuance that only you know, only you feel, only you know the deep, deep dark that you dive into. And as much as you'd love to bring someone there so you could give them a tour, no one can go there. It's just you in your own deep, deep dark. And sometimes we notice, there's no opening. There's no opening. I cannot see at all. Those are the moments where we are walking through the dark, we're walking through the void, we're walking through nothingness, we're walking through emptiness, we're floating in outer space, we're floating in inner space. pure absolute groundlessness. And also, this is the intersection, I say this with sympathy and compassion and let's say sensitively, this is the intersection of questioning life, the big existential question. It does cross into that very painful gray area of what I'm going to say. It's that place of, well, why am I even alive? And do I feel the sadness of that right now? To know that we also sometimes get to a place of such tight, constricted mind that we have no value to ourselves or to the world. And we really question, why am I even here? Why do I want to continue to be here? When you are in this place, when you're in constricted mind or even absolute shutdown, no view mind, the void, the emptiness, nothingness, complete darkness, back to the phrase, trauma is a disconnect, the inability to access any resource. It makes sense that so many people end in this place. I don't necessarily mean literally, physically, but there's for some of us it's kind of point of no return, that life is so burdened, and the suffering and the trauma, the lenses, the filters have obscured the view so much. It's like, imagine a window that's just covered in mud. And for some of us, we say, imagine a window that's covered in concrete. And you feel this impossibleness. Now let's come back to say, hey, don't you want to work with your mind? Don't you want to expand your consciousness? Don't you want to, let's choose possibility. There's a response here often that's like, well, fuck you. I'm staring at a wall of concrete, and I've been looking at it for, 40 years. Imagine you're trying to be in relationship, and you're living with this wall of concrete. You would love to be loved. You want to experiment with relationship. You can't see yourself, and you can't even see the other person. You can't see the relationship. And then the other person starts asking you questions, starts trying to find out who you are, who wants to see you. It's very frightening if you can't see yourself, or if you're only fixated on a concrete wall covering up the window. And there's that feeling of, I want to run the race. I really do. I really do want to show up. And I want to sign up for the race, and I want to wear the shoes, and I want to stretch before, and I want to practice jogging, and I cannot get out of this room. I cannot get out of this view. I cannot get out of my mind. The good news here, and this is going to sound magical, and I mean it as a phenomena of mind. All of these things, we're just observing mind. Work with your mind. Work with your mind. Work with your mind. It's closed, it's open. It's closed, it's open. And as much as we said you can't go to some healing conference and pay $800 to do the work and then all of a sudden say, oh my gosh, I have open mind. You can't. It doesn't work like that. The same thing is with yourself. You can't will it to happen. You can't assert some great will, some strength. We know the type of people who just love to try to strong arm, and they convince themselves, oh yeah, I'm conscious. Yeah, I'm open. Yeah, I'm really aware. And then three years later they say, I thought I I was fooling myself about my outlook because life kicked me in the ass again. Life came and showed up and surprised me, and I was really trying to just be an overactive PR firm, and I was trying to present a brand of who I am, to try to pretend I had it all together and I had it figured out, because I paid $800 to go to this conference, and I said, I want to belong, I want open mind, I want to be in a relationship, I want to feel love, I want to grab life. A word I love is zest, a zesty life, I want to feel the zest of life. So the magical part I'm going to present, or I think it sometimes comes across as magical, and let me try to explain. It's not magical. It's saying you realize you don't have to control anything. You mean I don't have to control? Oh, but that also creates an outrageous amount of fear. There's, just imagine if we were at a lecture. 2/3 of the room just stood up and left. When I say you don't have any control. I'm not going to stand for that. But you have observation. You have the ability to say, I'm going to do my best to notice. We're coming right back to this whole mindfulness business. I'm going to be mindful. I'm going to notice that my mind will change on its own. That's the magical part, because you can't really. People only think in terms of linear thinking and data and proof, and they're only focused on the outcome. There's some people watching this right now, and they're going to say, okay, well, that's all good, but what is the equation so that I can feel better? Or, okay, but I've been listening to you for an hour, so okay, what do I do? What are the steps? Can you just tell me? So that then I know, oh, right, I'm supposed to do this, and, brush my teeth, pick up my dry cleaning, go to the gym, and, have expansive mind because I do these steps. It's not about steps. It's about being. Meditation is not something you do. It's something that you show up for. It's something you participate in. It's not a thing. It's an experience. Same thing with poetry. Poetry is not words on a page. Poetry is not a book. Poetry is not an idea. Poetry is an experience. It's a lived experience. You enter the words, or the words allow you to enter them. Any kind of art, any kind of music, where you are taken into a different state of awareness. And we notice, if you're not totally in crisis, if you're not only living with concrete wall, and in fact, what I'm going to say applies to living with concrete wall. It applies to all of it. The deepest, most painful trauma, the deepest place of paralysis, the deepest place of loneliness, the deepest place of pure isolation. Even then, your mind is going to the lake, the water in the lake, it will shift. That's the magical part. That he's like, oh, okay, just because you say that, it's not shifting. I want it to shift. Well, it is awaiting. It is about patience. It's about allowing. If you live 20 years, 30 years in a heightened state of extreme stress and distraction and fear, going, you have planted all these seeds. You have run down all these grooves in your mind. You've created a habituated form of being and thinking. And we can pretty much guarantee that tomorrow when you wake up, you're going to return right back into spinning in fear and confusion and myopic view. Because you've been doing it for 20 years. It's not going to change in 2 hours. It's not going to change on a weekend workshop at a spa retreat center where you have really great food and do meditation. This is an ongoing practice. The phrase work with your mind is an invitation. And this is a big setup. I just want to get back to this idea. Your mind will change on its own, and then it will change again, then it will change back. And in meditation speak, we're talking about what we call gaps. There's a gap, there's an opening. If you're staring at the concrete wall for 6 hours, you have no view. You're so shut down, you are completely claustrophobically held prisoner within this space, and that's what you call life. And you cannot see yourself, you cannot see others. And you're sitting here for 6 hours, and you might not be able to sit there totally in 6 hours, so it's a half hour on Monday, it's a half hour on Tuesday. It's when you're going for a walk and your lunch break, you say, you know what, I'm going to check in with my mind. You're going to do 20 minutes there. And then maybe that evening, right before bed, you're going to do 15 minutes of just coming back to, what is my mind? Where am I at? And we say, you know what, I cannot see anything. And in that moment, sometimes our anxiety gets worse. So please know, that doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means like, oh my gosh, I'm really living with a lot of anxiety. And I'm spinning out. And during the day, I keep myself really super busy and active because I'm trying to avoid having to feel the intensity of this anxiety. And I'm just trying to give it an outlet. I need to channel that energy somewhere. And in that 10 minutes, 15 minutes before bed, when that wave of anxiety comes up, you're gonna think twice about, I'm not doing this tomorrow. Why the heck would I do this? Why would I invite a wave of anxiety before I go to bed? And many of us in that moment say, I'm just going to turn on mindless reality TV. I think I'm going to go in the kitchen and get a tub of ice cream. I think I'll have one more glass of wine before I go to bed, or let's have a drink before I go to bed. We're constantly trying to self-medicate and disconnect. So the 6 hours of staring at a very closed view might not happen in all one sitting. It's a process. We live with mind. We live with working with our mind. We live through these experiences. We live with the lake, constantly changing. And then here's what I'm saying, how mind changes on its own. It's the phenomena of mind. It's the nature of mind. In also Buddhist lingo, it's referred to as mindfulness of mind. You're looking at the concrete wall, and it just disappears. There's a blip. We could borrow from the imagery, the movie The Matrix here. There's a glitch in the Matrix. Whoop, that's weird. What was that? Some of us are frightened when that happens. We're like, my concrete wall that I've had for 40 years, that I really am so confined with, that I don't even realize what's out there. And it's rooted in some trauma. The other night, I was just sitting, doing some breathing. I turned off the TV, and I thought, I'm going to do a little life review. I'm going to check in with myself. That concrete wall just disappeared. It was so weird. It just felt like my mind... It's almost like I was in another room of my mind. Like I live in this really small room. There wasn't a hallway. I don't have to do anything to walk there. It's not a linear way of traveling there. It's what I call realms. The other room is like this, it's almost like a whole realm. And we pop into that concrete wall, that limited view, that constricted view, the fear, it's gone. It's not dramatically different. We're still in our life. It's not like we enter some fantasy. It's not unicorns and rainbows. It's the same reality. It's the same dirty spaghetti dish on the counter. It's the same empty tub of ice cream that you just had. It's the dust on all the furniture that you haven't dusted in a year and a half. And then, so life is still the same, but it's not the same. There's this little switch, this little shift. It's also been described like it's like there's a layer of saran wrap over your eyes or over reality, and that saran wrap just sort of lifts away. But here's the nature of mind. It won't last. It's not like you've arrived and you say, "Oh, good, I'm in the other realm now. I'm in the gated. I got in. I sent in my application. I got into the gated community of world beyond Saran Wrap. I go beyond the gate of Saran Wrap, and wow, I never have to work with my mind again because I just have all of this." Now, what we're describing is what some would call enlightenment. And if you're on that path, and if that's your goal, good for you. I'm on I take a different approach, and I say, I think I just want to, I don't need big bells and whistles, and I don't need some amazing mind transformation. I want to be able to be here now. I want to be able to love and be loved. And I want to be able to comfort myself when I'm overcome with fear. And I want to be able to have people in my life who notice that I sometimes struggle with being expansive and open. And I sometimes struggle when I'm shut down and closed off. And I do the same for them. There's a real reasonableness in this. And that when the saran wrap of disconnect falls away, or when that concrete wall just falls away, and we just all of a sudden see, feel possibility and creativity, and there's awareness, and it's in that space that just by right of this more expansive mind, that does feel calming. Because imagine again the image of the contractor with all the tools. It's as if our truck is fully stocked with every tool we've ever needed, even tools we didn't even know we had. And it's like, well, oh my gosh, I'm going to do fine here. Look, I got all these tools. Bring on any challenge in building this house, because I think I have options. When we're in constricted, obsessive, myopic view that's fear-based, we don't have a lot of options. So work with your mind is saying, let's just notice the lake. Let's just notice how your mind gets churned up. And let's just notice how spaciousness and open mind comes and goes and comes and goes. And if you allow yourself to slow down enough and pay attention, there's going to be these little glitches and these little reprieves of the intensity of a particular view. The concrete wall drops away, the obstruction drops away, the mud on the window drops away, the filters of trauma drop away, and it might only last for 30 seconds. It might only last for a minute and a half. And whatever you get, 30 seconds or a minute and a half, you go, wow, interesting. And then it's going to go right back to closed off myopic view, and you're going to immediately think of, oh, I got to get out my to-do list, and I got to do this, and I have this meeting, I got to pick up the kids, and I got to do this, and then don't forget Thursday, and then next month is totally shot because we got to go to the airport because our friend, and then we have that meeting with the lawyer because of that thing, and you're gone. And then maybe 2 days later, you catch yourself in your spinning plate busyness of a life, and you say, okay, here I go. And maybe, no guarantees, mindfulness of mind, again, there's a kind of shift. And you notice that shift lasts for 2.5 minutes, lasts for 5 minutes, lasts for 10 minutes. And if you keep doing this, each time you do it, you're noticing the gaps are going to expand a little bit more. The gaps are going to keep expanding. You might be able to hang out there for a half hour. You might notice a particular day when your mind is just so clear. Wow, my mind, it's like someone just polished the mirror. It's almost like, there's been this incredible Windex cleaning of my mind. I can really see a lot in the depths. I can really see, oh my gosh, I've never noticed that before. What is that? It's been there the whole time. It only lasts for a half hour, only lasts for, a day and a half, which I think is generous. I really don't think it lasts enough for many of us for a day and a half. It comes and goes and comes and goes. So do you see in healing work, and people go to therapy and, read a book or do certain courses, and there's this real kind of demand. There's a kind of arrogance and a silly immaturity about, okay, well, I'm going to do the work and then I will XYZ get something in return. I'll get the prize. Then I will access this particular mind. We don't force it. We're in relationship with it. Mind is existing without you. Mind doesn't need you to tell it what to do. You can choose to invite relationship with the mind that's already there and develop an exchange based on presence, awareness, respect, humility. Notice when you're attempting to be demanding and how mind just rolls its eyes at you. Like, okay. This shows up a lot in couples counseling, that sometimes there's a partner who is so hurt and frustrated and overwhelmed, and this partner has attempted to really take action and really try to assert making things change in their life, and they're really demanding of their partner to change. And they often like to make sure that they give a speech at the beginning of couples counseling about how advanced they are and that they've done the work and they really get it. They really get it. And they'll use a lot of, like popular language, around exploited healing terms like, attachment styles, well, I know my attachment style and I've done a lot of work and so I really understand what's going on here. So if only the other partner could get up to my level, mind does not care about that. You're not going to get any prize. The same thing is if you move to a monastery in India for 10 years and you meditate every day. Mind doesn't care about that. You're not going to get a prize. You don't get a prize. You don't get the life that you are trying to force to happen. You don't get all the abundance and the goodness just because you choose to get it. We don't need you let me think how to say this. Of course, I didn't know I was going to end up here, so, my mind takes me to places. So here we go. I might lose you here because I don't know if you're going to resonate with the language. It's very personal to me. There is the story of the Holy Grail, and it's the story of the fool Percival. And they're asking for who does the Grail serve? Now, I could lose you because, one, people don't like mythology. Two, the word Grail links to Christianity, and there's this religious overtone. Some people don't like that, so I've lost you there. Also, it's a very powerful meaning that works for me. You might hear what I'm going to say and be like, oh, whatever. Yeah. So that's why I run the risk of sharing this. But who does the Grail serve? So it's like saying, if you do all this work and you are more advanced in your healing and you're going to get access to expansive mind, who is that for? And in the story, there's all these other, I think there are other, there's princes, again, that's alienating, this language of hierarchy of royalty, so I'm sorry if you don't like this, but there's these other princes who are attempting to answer the question, because there's going to be this, they're gonna get the kingdom, they're gonna get the Grail. Who does the Grail serve? Who does this expansive mind serve? And if you say me, if you say yourself, then you're missing the point. If you think that it is in service for achievement, then you'll be asked to leave the throne hall, as in the story, and it's only Percival the fool who says, the Grail serves the Grail King. Again, people don't like this, might not resonate with what I'm saying, because the word king is gender-based, and again, hierarchy of royalty, and all of that business is not helpful because of the history and the baggage of the connotation of the words. But I'm just saying it works for me. I love it. I've loved it for years. I've known this for, 35 years. And there's times in my life that I will whisper to myself, who does the Grail serve? Who does the Grail serve? This is not to align with some personal need of gain and achievement and being somebody. I need to be somebody. Which is what the Instagram, YouTube video influencer, content marketing crap is all about. It's all about, I'm an expert, and I'm gonna explain, the 5 ways through attachment styles that we can be somebody. Mind, expansive mind, is a phenomena, an experience that exists regardless of your attitude, regardless of your conviction, regardless of you believing in abundance, regardless of you manifesting something. Which is why we come back, it's a bit more humble. And here's the other thing, it's less flashy, it's certainly less sexy, it's less entertaining, and it is it contains the duality, it contains the paradox, and hear me say this, it is effortless effort. Or we play with that, it is effort that is effortless. Which I know sounds confusing. We are in this moment, based upon what I just said, where we're at in the conversation, I'm really coming into the expansive transpersonal awareness of beyond the self, the greater interconnectedness, that we have one mind. And that, in fact, what we're doing here is we're just tapping into this collective unconsciousness, the web of humanity. And there are these layers of expansion that just keep going out and going out and going out. Or going in, going in, going in. Beyond the personal. The universal. We enter the universal suffering. It's not my suffering. It's not my trauma. It's our trauma. It is our tears that we are crying. It is our joy. It is our relationship. It is our love that we are practicing, opening to, accessing, inviting, talking about being with. And I like in Taoism, I mean, there's a point in which it's without language, which is why I pause there, like right so many minutes. It just makes me speechless. And in Taoism, the opening, the Tao that can be named is not the eternal name. The Tao translates into the way, and then use the path, the way, the experience, the mind. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal name. The mind that can be named is not the eternal mind. It means we can't even talk about it. We can't even really fully say it. We can't fully know it because we're just getting those glimpses, those blips. The saran wrap lifts and goes, mind, oh, and then it's gone again. And this is a lifestyle. This is a way of being. This is an orientation. It's not about healing and then being better. Thank you for listening. I've created a series of videos like this one, all different flavors. Some of them are a bit more personal stories of something that happened in my life. Meaning at the time, and these videos are all called Work With Your Mind. They were never intended to be a series. There is a community called Improve Your Relationships that I have had for a good number of years, and there is a structure in the community, and I offer some videos, and some of these videos every so often they're like organic and new, and I will say, over the years, I've said, hey, I just created a Work With Your Mind video. Check it out. Here it is. They have not been on any real frequency, And what I'm going to do, I think, in making this video, and I think maybe are there 6 other videos already? Maybe there's more, but I'm going to guess maybe there's 6. Then maybe plus this one. I don't know. But to put them together as a package, to really say okay, this is, I guess, we can, say that this is, they complement each other. So in that sense, if you like Work With Your Mind video, pay attention. I happy to, I will make more and happy to share them and do the things. Here's the part of my spiel, marketing spiel. I'm not just making this video because I feel like talking to myself in my office while the wind is blowing outside and it's a relatively okay, nice beginning fall day. And taking this time. I'm doing it because I'm invested in sharing this information with as many people as we can. The agenda is, can we talk about this, please? Can we, I don't want to just live in this isolated place where this is what's going on. I think you need to know. I think I need to know. And so the whole purpose is saying, will you please share this video with other people? Will you, I call it do the things, click like, hit subscribe, hit notification bell, blah, 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 blah. We've heard it 800 times. That will support, if you got value, if you got benefit from, it is, I am aware of being generous with my time. And so if you receive that as it's intended, please pay it forward. And one way to pay it forward is to support the video, getting views and or share it with other people. Okay, I think that's it. Today you're going to work with your mind. You're going to observe what's happening and you're going to notice the constriction and the expansion, the constriction and the expansion. Thank you so much. See you next time.